a face that's becoming pretty familiar on South African roads, the Mazda face, and in particular the test car, the Mazda CX3, which is the smallest SUV in the Mazda range, based on the platform of the Mazda 2 hatchback, which has just come third in the 2016 SA Car of the Year. So certainly a well received and accepted platform. Of course, built into an SUV form, so it is a bit bigger than the standard Mazda 2, which is a little hatchback, and made into a family SUV. The engine is a 2-litre petrol engine taken actually from the bigger Mazda CX3. It puts out 115 kilowatts and 205 newton meters of torque. So it's certainly not lacking in power, and gives the slightly smaller, well, mid-sized B-segment SUV a nice bit of power and energy. Of course, being Mazda, not turbocharged, but with their Sky Active technology. Being a typical SUV type vehicle, you can see you've got a nice family-sized boot with the standard cover, and you do have the folding split rear seats in a 60-40 split. So again, versatility and fair space if you do need that, and nice and easy to close over here, adding to that. Something that has been fairly criticized by many, but I think is a good feature, is the pretty sharply raked rear end, which does maybe compromise a little bit on rear end space, particularly headroom, which we will look at shortly, but then again, I think it makes for a very smart looking vehicle. Behind the wheel of the Mazda CX3, comfort, yes, definitely lots of that. You've got, of course, your standard steering wheel with controls and your buttons on your multifunction steering wheel. The CX3 does have an I-stop function as well, in other words a stop-start function, and there is a button right down here which I'm struggling to find, where you can turn off and also turn off the traction control if you do wish to do so. Then again, in general driving, I don't ever see the need. Very clean, neat dashboard as well, as you can see, with a computer function as well, showing that I've averaged 7.3 liters per 100 kilometers during my week driving the vehicle. Tested figures range anywhere from 6.8 to 7.3 liters per 100 k's, so I've definitely been in that ballpark. We come to the screen in the center, and this is one of the points I want to point out on this car. The version we're driving is the active version. There are 3 different specification levels in the Mazda CX3, and they are all powered by the same engine with the same output. However, the trim and the specifications vary. So this one, being the active, which is the bottom of the range, has the very limited multimedia functionality over here. You go down, you do have your full air conditioning, USB and auxiliary down here, which is very nice, and you come to the 6-speed automatic gearbox and gear shift over here, with over there a little button where you can toggle between normal and sport modes. And that is where my one of 2 bones of contention arise with the active version, and I specifically state only with the active version, because on the CX3 6-speed automatic gearbox, it tends to hold the ratios, particularly in sport mode. If you go into sport mode, obviously a sport mode, this whole function is to hold your ratios a little bit longer, and I feel that it probably holds them a little bit too long for my liking, meaning your revs are much higher because you're in a lower gear, and it tends to be a little bit reluctant to shift up. If you move up to one of the higher specification models for an extra 19,000 Rand, which on a vehicle that starts at 270 odd thousand Rand and to 295 for the next version up, on that one you get flappy pedals. Now, a lot of people criticize flappy pedals. The advantage of them on a Mazda CX3 is that you can override the inbuilt programming to hold on to ratios, and you can shift up gears a lot quicker. The second thing you get as you move up in the range is you get the full functionality of a large touchscreen infotainment system. Always a case of you pay your money, you take your choice, but for 19,000 Rand, those 2 features will take a good car and turn it into an excellent vehicle, in my opinion. Let's see what life is like in the back seat. Moving into the back seat of the CX3, well, I mentioned in the beginning the headroom because of the sharply sloped rear end of the vehicle. There's just enough clearance for me with my hat on, so it's adequate without being exceptional. Legroom is pretty good, I've got no complaints over there, and you've got room for 2 to 3 in the back seat, so it's a nice 4 to 5 seater family vehicle. With a young family, the headroom is not going to be as much of an issue. Overall, a comfortable vehicle, well built, nicely put together, and it feels very solid and very comfortable, and a quality product without a doubt. For 275,800 Rand for this active automatic as we're testing, well, good value. But I have to repeat my comment, for 294,200 for the dynamic version, I think you're actually looking at those features which will make the difference to make this a far more desirable vehicle. There's lots of competition in the segment, lots of opposing vehicles that fulfill very similar functions and can be deemed to be very similar. But if you're looking at a B segment SUV, do yourself the favor of taking a look at the Mazda CX3.